Good morning. We have arrived in Barack Obama Plaza in Moneygall, and we're well on our way to Kilkenny for regionals. So I'm uploading the previous episode of this vlog as we speak, which isn't a great idea when your entire target audience, the entire people that watch you, are actually involved in the tournament itself. So they're going to be playing round one, and the video's going to go live. So that's unfortunate. But as I said, time was not my friend this week. So hopefully be more efficient this week, and it should be an interesting tournament. Look forward to it. Have my decks locked in, and we're going to see how it all goes.
That was tempting though, because it's a good card. It's an amazing card for.
Well, we've decided on our fate, so it is Wizard Polana, and there was a lot of toing and froing over one spare influence. Do I put in Plascrete? So in the end, yes, Plascrete went in, and I put in Political Operative instead of Philanchrotic. So in the recap, I will be able to tell you if that was a wise call or not. Should be an interesting day. Small little field, smaller than I would have expected, but it's looking like top four, or it's looking like 4 rounds of Swiss and then the top 8 cut. So should be plenty of Netrunner action. We're going to have the first round off, but so will 5 other people. So here, having the bye isn't an automatic guarantee to the top. But I will see how we go, and fingers crossed all goes well. So pretty. You're right. Shut away.
I don't want to shout over your awesome video of epicness.
And we're starting. What's up, guys? And we're here with Mr. Netrunner Ireland himself. This is Azrael Vids. Well, we're checking out, did all the regionals coverage, and it's one of the reasons that I got into the consistent uploading, because I saw what you were doing with the 4-game block. I thought that's a really clever system, because I was just doing it without rhyme or reason for the point. I was just, oh, I like this deck, I'll put up a game, I'll do this deck, and it's not really the best way to do it. It's much better to have the consistent way to it. So you're a store champion. I was going to say as well, I'm not the only person here that got the store championship by finishing second. So.
Well, yeah, so I feel bad at times because we've got quite a small meta in Belfast, so we're talking, our store championships are like 10 to 12 people. So I actually won 2 store championships back at the start of the year, and happy enough to get to use the regional buy, and obviously having 2 regionals in Ireland for the first year, absolutely epic. So getting to have Bangor at the end of May and be able to judge in that, and then getting to come down to Kilkenny and meet up with all the kind of southern guys is really a nice treat this year, and very different to what we had last year with just the one in Galway. So hopefully hopefully we can keep building on that.
Yeah, it's great you were able to do the whole tournament organising side as well. So
yeah, which is good.
It was unfortunate at the time because you were obviously one of the strong competitors at that time. You'd gone on 2 or 3 tournament wins up to that point.
Yeah, I think I'd managed to get 5 in a row with a couple of winter skits and stuff.
5 in a row.
I think it got pretty good at one point, and then they stopped giving play mats away in the spring kit, and I instantly started finishing far further on the table. But I did get my Leela ID, so I'm happy with that, and that's good enough for me.
How are you feeling about today?
Very nervous, incredibly nervous. So 23 Seconds was obviously just announced that we're going to be using it for this regional on Wednesday or Tuesday. So due to kind of family issues, I didn't get much chance to practice, which was kind of sucky, unfortunately. So not sure what to expect out of hard-hitting news, out of sync, out of I always get the name wrong. Changing the message, controlling the message. I think that deck is super strong right now. I think there's going to be people getting the last bit of Wizard while he's still strong before MWL comes in at 1st of August.
Who would play Wizard?
You playing Wizard today? Yeah. So I'm rocking Polana and I'm rocking Kate. I did bring 4 decks down with me. I brought Noise and a controlling the message deck as well, but I bottled it last minute. I don't have the cojones.
Yeah, you gotta go with the gut. Although today could be a very weird day.
Yeah, very much so. We've got the room's kind of bare at the minute because there was 6 buys used.
6 buys, yeah.
So yeah, so Sean Lucy, 1 2014, 1 2015, and he's going to be here today, and I'm hoping not to get matched with him.
Yes. round 2, round 3 is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
and there could be a lot of IDs floating around round 3, round 4 as well.
Spoke about that with some of the guys here last night actually when we were talking about it, and I didn't realise this, but some of the guys in the big Birmingham regionals, the 69 player one, were buying in the first round and then IDing in early rounds. So those guys who all had store championship wins were sort of IDing round 2 and 3, I believe, to kind of set themselves up for the rest of the day. And I've never thought about using an ID in anything but like the last round to stay in the cut, or maybe if you're playing a lot of rounds, possibly the last 2. So yeah, I'm conscious to see we have a lot of, the cool thing about Ireland, the cool thing about Netrunner in general, I think, is there's a lot of little local communities. You know, so we have 4 guys from Cork, we have like 6 guys from the north, we've got a few guys from Dublin, a few guys from Kilkenny, and it's interesting to see how those kind of work together. But I don't think there'll be anything malicious. It'll just be interesting to see how the scoreboard goes in a couple of rounds. 4 rounds is tough.
It's going to be interesting to make the cut.
Yeah, exactly. Strength of schedule can make a position when you're doing 4 rounds. When you do like 5 or 6 or 7, it becomes a little easier to kind of diversify.
It's a bit more leeway to it. Yeah. But good luck for the day.
Thank you, Angie.
Definitely check out this channel. This is Azrael Vids while we're checking out. So it was a long day today. It is late now. It wasn't late when I got home, or it wasn't as late as it could have been, but I will do a recap very shortly. What's up guys? So I'm catching up on some Netrunner videos, but I'll get to that in a second. I found the most bizarre sport in the world. It is some sort of mix between just tapping people and all-out violence. I don't know, there's kicks being flung, there's people just poking, there's tackling. It's really, really odd, I don't understand. Anyway, so I'm just catching up some videos of This Is Azrael and some others. Obviously talked about him or talked to him in a recent clip. But this guy puts me to shame in so many elements of Netrunner. I mean, great player. I finished 2nd today. Unfortunate to lose out to Sean Lucy, who I think has gone for 3 regionals year on year. But here he is, like, vlogging middle of the street, which is something that I don't really do, and I definitely need to work on. And also, got the personality to boot. So, this video's turned into a bit of a love letter to as it seems. But also, Code Marvelous put up a video with Kiv, probably my favourite Netrunner YouTuber. Definitely right up there. It's funny to put a face to the voice. Such distinctive personality and everything over the last few years. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it all matches up to the image you have in your mind. I never had that illusion really. So I left it a couple of days to do a tournament recap, and that was a massive mistake. Not because I've forgotten everything, things are actually pretty clear in my head, and I have an email to refer back to with the details of how the day went. But you may have guessed, if you can see the big red nose, I'm thick. Yeah, I'm being knocked for 6 by a cold at the moment. Feeling very under the weather, and not in the mood to do talking for many, many minutes. I did commentary last night for today, and there's points in the video when I'm pretty sure you can tell that I'm struggling to breathe or suffocating myself, so gonna have to have a nap now, try and recover and bounce back soon, and then do the tournament recap. But I will say that the news of this week is that I've booked tickets to go to UK Nationals. After lots of persuasion, I've been talked around to going. We'll see how I get on. Not sure what to expect. Gonna have to practice pretty hard over the next couple of weeks, but it should be a good event. Should be a good tour. Possibly try and come up with loads of decks that use like satellite grid as a way of subtly promoting the old events calendar. We'll see what happens. There are side events and there's the main tournament itself, so I shouldn't be bored if nothing else. But yeah, time to medicate myself up and rest, hopefully recover, and then launch into a full tournament report from regionals last weekend. Not time for the recap just yet, you'll have to wait one more moment. But I was playing on Jateki tonight and met one player, Clusterfox. We didn't actually get to play, but they joined as a spectator, and they mentioned that they actually watched the channel, which I have to say I always appreciate. It is great to put names to essentially numbers, but yeah, it's great to chat to people who actually watch the channel. I appreciate the support, definitely. So it's nice for me to be able to say, thank you very much for actually watching, interacting, all that kind of thing as well. So hopefully I can continue to entertain, educate in the worst possible fashion by making loads of mistakes, and hopefully someday I can actually win a tournament. The last couple of weeks I've been travelling to a couple of events around Ireland, and again, meeting people who watch the channel. I keep saying, or keep thinking actually watch the channel, but it's great to chat to people, about games I've played online or the vlogs, even though I leave myself open to ridicule with the whole, becoming a champion, going to win a tournament, and then it's like, oh, next week you'll get it, or does your journey come to an end, all that kind of thing. So yeah, just have to say in the middle of a video, thank you. Alright, it is time. So round 1, I had the bye from the Store Championship in Kilkenny. I was really happy with that. And this time it wasn't quite as boring to have a bye because, you know, there were people milling about. There was 5 or 6 used on the day. So I got chatting to as you've seen, while the Cork lads were off, you know, doing their colluding. Unfortunately, there was a big delay. The software seemed to just crap out. Didn't really like the fact that there were buys, or so many of them. But there ended up being a delay. So we were all kind of just sitting around, hanging out, chilling out. But it was good to have the chats. Kind of just think about the day ahead, mentally prepare maybe. But the thing you miss out on from playing the first game is you're not quite sure what's happening in the room. You know, when you're playing, you'll sometimes hear about a certain deck. Like someone beside you will say, you know, oh, Punitive, or DRT, that kind of thing. Whereas when you're outside, you don't hear that. And obviously you're not talking to people after their games, so you don't get to scout in a way without really scouting. But that was round 1 done, 2-0. There was some discussion about intentional draws, even the strategy of it. Some people had said that maybe round 2 is a better time to intentionally draw, rather than leave it till later rounds. So game 2, as is tradition, it seems, I was up against Owen once again, and this time he was breaking out Kate, which was interesting. He said that when the meta is in flux, you're better off playing Kate as opposed to something like Haley. Kate's a more general purpose runner. And he was also playing Polana, because Polana is just great. So I had kind of seen him messing around with Nexus Kate online because of all the control in the message possibilities that were going on out there. So that was kind of what I was expecting when I saw Kate. And I know Nexus Kate takes a little bit longer to set up. It doesn't quite have all the tools that regular Kate does. So I decided I had to try and go a little bit faster. Polana can be a bit multi-purpose in that regard. So I thought that's exactly what I had to do. I had a remote server that was, I think, a piece of Grey Light and then Grim. But in it, I had the Navi Mumbad City Grid, just to prevent the kind of shaper shenanigans that I was expecting on the day. And sure enough, it worked out quite well. I was able to get a Batty rezzed and fire to hit, I think it was the Grim, or it was the next piece, which was Lancelot maybe, with Galahad in hand. But either way, I was able to wipe out a couple of programs, and because of the grid being on the board, it meant that Clone Chip SMC couldn't be used, so that worked out really well. It happened a second time later on, I think, and it was one of those targets that he was actually considering using Political Operative on, which is fantastic when you have assets like Caprice or Batty as well in your deck. One mistake I did make was not putting down a second Caprice into the remote, because obviously one Caprice is definitely a Political Operative target. When you have the Mumbad grid in the server with it, it means that they have to use it before they make their run, which means that your second Caprice is perfectly suitable to be rezzed and used unless they have a second Political Operative, but that's a whole other story for another day. It was a very tight game though. I think the score was 5-5 or 6-5 to me. I had a Future Perfect in hand, I had another agenda put into the remote, and he wasn't quite sure that he could get at it. But he was running R&D, or he decided to make a run on R&D, and the problem was any agenda in there would have just given up the ghost. Thankfully, held out, so I managed to claim that side of the game. And on the flip side, it was a pretty similar story to how it usually goes, the Wizard versus Polana matchup. Things went a little bit slowly, and again, he just pushed super aggressive. I think he had Lotus Field, so not only did I need Yogg, but I needed Never DIs as well. I think I ended up 4-0 down with 2 Nisei tokens on board before I could really get going, and by that point it was too little too late. He installed Advanced, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Wasn't going to win multiple Psy games and get through, and yeah, just a disaster basically. I did try and do like Hail Mary runs, pitching entire hands to Kaminu, things like that, but wasn't to be. So another split with Owen. It seems to be becoming a bit of a pattern at this stage. Right, so we're into round 3. In a pretty good position, I have to say, and we're up against Sean Shortis of Kilkenny, who I haven't got to play yet because, well, usually he's in charge of admin down there. So this is going to be a new experience. In equally new terms, he was playing Controlling the Message, which I didn't play against in the run-up to regionals despite talking about how I needed to. So, you know, living up to that whole fail to prepare, prepare to fail thing. And yeah, tough experience. It was a deck I was worried about facing up against, and there were a couple in Kilkenny. Thankfully this was the only one I faced. Wizard with Desperado helps with the threshing of things, so in acid spam decks, but 0 link, and I didn't put any extra link in there as well, so the Trace 4, that hurts. Off the bat I was able to put on a bit of pressure. I got a 3-pointer very, very early, got a medium dig going, but then he iced it up with like either a toll booth or a mudraker, and I didn't want to faceplant into either of those. I tried to keep him somewhat honest on the remotes, but eventually it just kind of spiraled out of control. I think he got off the diversified portfolio, Mumbad City Hall, Museum of History stuff, and yeah, it was just brutal after a while. I got so much money going, and I was able to get to 6 points, but I was struggling, and patience or impatience got the better of me, which is something that I talked about with other players, that to beat this deck you have to be incredibly patient, but with one eye on the time, it just wasn't going to be my day. So there was about maybe 20 minutes left, and I thought I can make a push on R&D. Like I have medium good to go. There have to be agendas somewhere. I can get in, see a few cards, and just try to put on the pressure basically. So went for it, saw nothing, got a Cyberdex to the face, built up again, went on another R&D charge, but left myself slightly short of being able to push a couple more times, so whiffed completely on that. Think I tried to go HQ, saw nothing, and I ended up getting tagged up to the wazoo. He was able to psychographics out a Beal or score it straight out. He had been kind of tipping away with like a Beal just naked scored, 15 minutes, 2 franchise city, or 1 franchise city and something else. But yeah, I was in a rough spot, and the timer got the better of me, I have to say. I got too conscious about the fact that I had a second game to play, and put winning this game kind of to the back of my mind. Should have tried to just be a bit more patient. Maybe I should have checked more remotes, because the winning Beal had been installed and out there. Maybe I took my focus off that. Let him play a little too fast and loose on that side of things. But yeah, tough match. Definitely one I'm going to have to prepare for a little more, or maybe just play a different deck altogether. The Nexus Kate, Sunny kind of thing seems to be doing well at the moment, or seems to be well equipped to deal with it. So by the time all of that was done and dusted, we had about 10 minutes to finish an entire second game. Now I've said Polana can play quick, but it's quick by Glacier terms, so still pretty slow. My opening hand I think had Caprice, 1 piece of ice, and a Nisei. So I mean, that's pretty good, but I got overly conscious about the fact that, well, A, he was playing Valencia, so that was going to cause problems. B, I didn't want to get hit by either a medium dig or keyholes, and possibly misplayed it. Possibly went too defensive, but I think either way I would have had to wait till turn 2 to get a score off anyway. Just money-wise, I wouldn't have had enough. So put the ice on R&D and kind of just took money, hope for the best. He got both the Nisei and the Caprice, and that was pretty much how the game finished. I tried to do a little bit of setup, him the same, but he had the 2-point lead and took a time to win. So we're heading into round 4 with my tournament life in the balance. I'll put up a screenshot here, and as you can see I'm not looking in great shape. I'm down in 13th I think it was, and looking at the standings I was kind of thinking, A, I need to go 2-0 in the next match, B, I need things to work out well ahead of me, and of course with intentional draws and things like that in the mix, it throws some spanners in the works basically. So round 4 was up against Tony Gleeson, fellow Limerick man. I have played him in tournaments in general and also recently. And yeah, they tend to be good and close games. Not exactly what you want when you need to win both. So he was playing Course at Wayland, which I had played against him in Brokan before, making tons of money. Big ice, the usual shenanigans. And he was also playing Kate with big breakers, big efficient breakers. To begin with, I was running, and Anarch's fixed strength breakers tend not to like Wayland's ice. It tends to be big and beefy. Some of it will hurt you, most of it will stop you. Now, of course, this was pre-most wanted list 2, so I did have David on my side. But I was slow to set up, just couldn't find the right breakers at the right times. Ran HQ, was trying to put on that bit of pressure, and Spiderweb stopped me, but I was able to parasite it. Now, a couple of turns later, or the next turn, when it was ticking down a bit and I had Data Sucker, I decided to run again, had David ready to go. So, I mean, curtain wall, Hadrian's wall, archers, things like that I was ready for. Once again, I hit Cobra face first. That seems to be how I run against Cobra. Yeah, Mimic just wouldn't show up, so face full of Cobra, and got bitten. He decided to take out David, which, in the general perspective of looking at Wayland, is the right choice. Did mean, however, that he lost Spiderweb. Though in reality that's really just a bump in the road more than anything too significant or too meaningful. He had a strong scoring server set up, he'd made tons of money at that point, and managed to get out to a 4-point lead fairly swiftly. I think I managed to get a 2-pointer from somewhere, but then he installed and double advanced a card in the scoring server. I was looking at it with my tournament world crashing down around me. I think I made a half-hearted effort at getting in there, and just looking at these pillars of ice, and I was like, nope, not happening. So I pitched like Liberated Accounts, some other card. He started up his turn, advanced twice, and scored a 4-2. At which point I was looking at my discard pile and going, that Liberated Accounts could be really, really useful. That is definitely a habit, it's definitely a bad habit that I need to get out of. Sometimes I'll just consign myself to defeat. I won't play what's in front of me. I'll kind of go into my head and go, okay, he's just gonna, triple advance here, score it out, alright, let's move on to the next game. But, it's not over, and in that case, I definitely made things much, much harder for myself. So, 6-2 down, not a great position to be in, no Liberated Accounts left, but then he pushed for a score in the scoring server. I think it was a couple of turns later, but it was in Oaktown, so had to be face up and advanced. So perfect. I know what exactly, what I have to do. I know what I'm facing because I've seen the scoring server. I know what kept me out, and I'm sitting there trying to do math in my head. I'm pretty sure I had net really highs in hand. I had a sure gamble as well, and I was trying to math things out. I was like, okay, I can get this. So popped the sure gamble, which surprised him. I think when he was doing his mental arithmetic, that he hadn't taken that into account. Was able to run, get through, do just enough to score. And I was like, okay, now what do I do? Sat back for a moment, decided, let's take a look at HQ. Ran in through the Cobra, which is now much easier to get through when you have a Mimic on board, and sniped the one 3-pointer in his hand, which, if it had gone into the scoring server, that was it. So, my luck from Kilkenny last week came back to the fore again. 1 in 4 shot, and whew, dodged a bullet. So into game 2, and this is the make or break one then. Plana up against Big Breaker Kate. Now, I actually got a pretty bad start. I got flooded very early, and he seemed to have a dream start. He was getting his test run scavenge down, and when you have a breaker suite, that's full of like battering ram, garrote, and torch. I was looking at my eyes going, none of you are long for this world. You're all kind of useless at this stage. The grey ice is great, but like Merlin's strength 4, Torch is strength 4, Battering Ram will just chew through Galahads, things like that. But, I do have defensive upgrades like Caprice and Batty, so time to use them to my advantage. I did push for Nisei quite early, and the token was essentially a lifesaver. He tried to legwork at one point when I had, I think, Global Food or Future Perfect in hand and another agenda. So, obviously, I popped that token just to shut that down. He was a little strapped for cash, I think. Trying to remember back. But it was enough to kind of stop him for a while. Scoring server was well protected. It was good to go. I was able to just, stick agendas in there, not have to worry about things. Everywhere else was a little more dicey because of the big breaker suite that was going on. Now, I will say this is the match where my luck, Lady Luck was smiling upon me, because he went on 3 or 4 Maker's Eye runs, seeing 3 or 4 cards each time with RDI down, RD interface, and yeah, completely whiffed on everything. But at one point in the game I had been sitting on like 4 agendas, and early on pitched a Future Perfect to Archives as well, because I was like, can't hold all of these, and also I need Grail Eyes in hand. That's the downside of playing Grail, is you need both them and, the usual bits and pieces that you want to play the game in hand. And I thought Archives might be the safest place for it. Turns out it was. I was able to win the side game on that, and I was definitely doing better on money. economy and a lot of luck really saved me in this game. And that's it for the Swiss rounds. So, they gathered everyone together, did the usual, going to do our prize breakdown. Started at 16th because we had tokens and all that kind of stuff. Went all the way through, to count, 12, 11, 10, 9, mark. And my face just fell, my heart was broken. And then they said Walsh. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I survived. Yes, somehow I snuck in 8th position. Again, I'll put the rankings up here. A lot of us finishing on 10 points. And I think strength of schedule, which I still don't understand fully, managed to save me. I think Mark Walsh took a intentional draw in the last round, which, as I said, I think I needed a couple of people ahead of me to do. And just, I don't know, luck again, or maybe sketchy tournament software. I don't know. I don't understand how this works, so I can't say anything. But yeah, somehow just crept in. And yeah, top 8. So I got what I came for, basically. I know this series is titled Becoming a Champion, but after the regionals earlier this year, where I imploded, basically, I needed top 8. I wanted it, for the playmat alone, I wanted top 8. Isn't she a beauty? So we got a quick break. I went off to get some food. Luckily the restaurant was very accommodating for me, because the dash Jane was like, okay, I need this food as fast as possible, and then I need to inhale it. So I got 3 starters, ate as much as I could, ran out with like garlic bread in hand and everything, was running down the streets of Kilkenny. But yeah, got back. The good news then was I got to face against Alan Noonan, who I've mentioned in some tournament recaps a long time ago. But yeah, definitely one of the strongest players in Ireland, and Cork blood in him, of course, because where else would you be from when you're doing well in tournaments in Ireland? One thing I will say is, anytime I face him in tournaments, he seems to be playing kill decks. He's a lovely guy, but he seems to bring out all of his aggression in Netrunner, and only in tournaments when I face him, always like tag and bag, and death is on the cards. So he's playing Sync, and in truth I was never in this game. From the off, I didn't get great draws. He installed an advanced card, just here's a remote, run it if you want. So in my head I was looking at it going, alright, what are the various possibilities? I don't want him to score breaking news, that's a fact, that's a given. I would prefer he didn't score Astro. I mean, he's only allowed to run one of it, but it's still an incredible agenda, can still cause issues. Exploded Palooza was on the cards as well, but unfortunately I dropped Film Critic from my list. I put it in Political Operative instead. I think Film Critic would have been a better call in this particular tournament, but hey, that's hindsight, 2020 and all that. So after humming and hawing for a while, I ran it NAPD, which I didn't have enough to steal. So I was like, okay, now I know certain bits and pieces that he's playing. But because of the run, he was able to smack me with hard-hitting news, and out of sync, that's just an unpleasant experience. I worked up the bank balance and all that, slowly cleared it over time as he scored out NAPD, breaking news, and then again installed advance behind like a pop-up window. So I ran it, and NAPD once again. So yeah, he was able to get to 6 points pretty swiftly, and bury me once again in hard-hitting news tags that I was never going to be able to clear. And a couple of turns later I made a big mistake, or the next turn, very quickly anyway, made the big mistake of running with 3 cards in hand at the end of my turn, and Scorch came pretty swiftly. So yeah, I was never in this game, and unfortunately it's the one that has been recorded. Mark Walsh had an amazing setup. I hopefully have showed it at some point. I'll try and put a video clip in now if not. But yeah, great setup for recording. Very jealous. But hopefully that video will be put up soon and I can link it, and you can check out the horror that it was. So we're down to the losers bracket, but we've been here before. We came back, make a dramatic comeback, and if you're going to write a script, this is how you want to do it. So I was up against Mike. He is also from Cork, so unsurprised to see him in top 8. I think there was 4 Cork people in top 8, 2 from the north, 1 Kilkenny, and myself from Limerick. Actually, on that point, I have said it in the past that there's the whole like, oh, where is he from, Dublin, Limerick? And the event organisers were asking, Mark, where are you from? Is it Dublin again? And I think it was during my knockout match, it may be on the video with Alan, and I just kind of stared at him, because I wasn't sure if he was trying to rile me up or not. It turns out he was writing a Facebook post to say where people were from, and obviously I travelled down from Dublin for certain events, but from Limerick. So yeah, I was just kind of staring at him going, is this real? Is this happening? I was playing as Polana and up against Geist. So Geist is a match that I've struggled with sometimes. I really like him, and once you get going with him, he is nigh on unstoppable, I would say. So I knew how to move quickly. I got a Nisei scored nice and early, and started to feel in a better position. I was getting things set up. I was flooding the scoring server with all sorts of upgrades. I had the 2 Caprice, I think, 2 Batty in there at one point. Possibly a bit overkill. In fact, definitely overkill. I did get a sneaky Philotic scored as well. I just kind of installed it and left it off. The next turn I decided to score it. Maybe I pulled the trigger too soon on it. He only had 2 cards in hand, but I don't know. Was he going to score enough points and then drop down in hand size for me to be able to kill him? Seems unlikely. So I decided to just get points on the board, guaranteed points, and work away like that. Did manage to hit a Cogate Breaker, but of course Geist is running 2 levies, so not all that necessary, and they do have 3 crowbars as well, so taxing them out of breakers is going to be difficult. So I was up 4-2, and I felt at that point that if I drew a 5-3 that I was going to win. I felt in a good spot. I didn't think Geist could make the comeback, but which 5-3 just wouldn't appear, and unfortunately I dropped Clones Are Not People from my deck as well. So Geist was slowly hitting that critical mass of you're not stopping me. Spy cameras, able to see the top of R&D, all the disposable breakers you could want, and yeah, starting to feel under pressure. In reality, I overly protected the scoring server. Caprice or Batty or both should have gone on R&D. I had a Mumbad City Grid there as well. Didn't have much ice there. I didn't think it would be all that useful after a certain point. And sure enough, he ran R&D after using the spy camera. And here I made a misplay. I res Sandberg, which, you know, increased the strength of my ice. Like, okay, this is decent. What I should have done was res the Mumbad City Grid first, then Sandberg. Don't know if it would have stopped him all that much, but it would have hindered him. He would have ended up on fewer credits, or would have had 1 click less as he has to deal with Sandberg at a later point, or jack out, things like that. But yeah, I misplayed at that. And in the end, I'm not sure if that cost me, but couldn't draw the agenda that I needed. I did the install advance trick, or install advance, I can't even remember if I had a second advancement on it. And he did my trick of going, well, that's that. As I scored it out to go up to 6 points, he was like, oh, well played, good game. I was like, it's not over. Should have taken the win. Should have just gone, yep, good game, gone. And as everyone else is going, but you're on 6. Nope, gone, I'm done. Out the door, bye. But no, it wasn't to be. I got to 6, but in the end he got to 7. Film Critic installed at the perfect time to grab the Future Perfect, and unfortunately there was nothing I could do to get a score before he'd be able to double click to get it off. So, unfortunate, but them's the breaks sometimes. Need to learn to play better against Geist. Unfortunately out in 8th, but pretty happy with my regionals performance. I think I was in a stronger position at the Bangor Regionals, just in terms of the decks I brought and the comfort level of them. Because of the newness, controlling the message and things like that, I was quite uncertain going in today. Wizard, I was in an iffy spot over, but happy with 8th, happy with the playmat. And again, room for improvement, some lessons learned. I've been watching videos recently from Evo, things like that, a tournament that was on recently for fighting games, and listened to interviews of like Long Island Joe, things like that, and he's been saying that he's been watching back his matches, and you know, the ones that he loses, and you learn more from your defeats than you do from victories. Anytime I've talked about a learning experience, it's always been, well, I put this down and whiffed it, or didn't install Grail Ice, but I've learned. Whereas if I'm talking about victories, half the time I can't even remember them properly. If I'm playing Polana, I just assume Caprice and then Nisei Token and then snowball from there. Obviously I would have liked a longer run, would have liked more experience, more games, all of that, but I'm happy with how I got on, and I'm glad that I redeemed myself somewhat after the last regionals performance. And now the next stop is UK Nationals. Heading over there in August, good contingent of Irish people heading over, and it's going to be quite the experience. Much bigger event than I've done before, a lot more rounds of Swiss even to, you know, get anywhere. And I'm actually going to have to work for what we would call in Ireland a participation prize. Over in UK it is very much top 64. Get good or go home with nothing. So that's something to look forward to. Obviously I will be doing the video recaps on the way, Am I going to become a champion at it? Wouldn't that be a story? I'll touch on one more thing before I finish up this vlog, and that is the whole, what's in a name? Apparently if you're a Netrunner fan, everything. The name is the most important thing of all time. Maybe it's because we're so focused on details, picking out like nitty-gritty things, looking at names of cards and trying to work out like what's the pop culture connection or what's the reference. But at the moment there is a discussion on Netrunner Ireland, and it is all about nationals. Now Ireland doesn't have a authorised nationals, so it's just community members taking it upon themselves to throw a tournament. And the name nationals has caused issues, it seems, because people are trying to work out where is the best location for maximising the number of people that can go, timing, all that kind of thing. But there was a good point that if it was just given a random name, I think Owen said like the Wild West Showdown, which is unfortunately better than anything I can come up with on the spot. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, but because it's called Nationals, people get bent out of shape, it seems. I remember the big boy also ran into this issue recently with his Elite Invitational. Not the finest name, okay. But is the name all that important? I mean, things have been named terribly for years. I mean, we have a World Series of Baseball where most of the world doesn't compete. What makes the Super Bowl better than other bowls? And then the Champions League. I mean, when you've 2 or 3 teams from a league competing, that kind of nullifies the whole Champions bit. And it's not even a league. So I don't know. I think it's great that people are willing to put on tournaments. I think naming conventions shouldn't be what people get hung up on. I think, if anything, we need more tournaments. If we were to have 4 nationals in a year, I'd be alright with that. Might be confusing, especially when someone is declaring themselves nationals champ. But I don't know, I think more events are needed. So thank you very much for watching both this vlog, and if you've been watching videos this week especially, thank you very much for sticking with me. I haven't been 100%, which you may have gathered. A, because I mentioned it in this clip, looking for sympathy, and B, because I think even in some of my commentary, I've been listening to them at least, and there seems to be points where you can just hear my health deteriorate over time. So hopefully it's not that obvious, but I'm sure anyone listening to bad publicity is like, don't want to watch this guy. I mean, listen to his voice. It's awful. It is one of those things, it's just grating. But anyway, it's been a good week. Regionals was a success, I think. We've got more events to look forward to, regardless of what they're called.